Hello everyone, and welcome to Reinvention Queen, the space where women over 50 and especially those over 60 discover how to reinvent their lives. From food and style to joy, purpose, and finding meaning. It is never too late to be the best version of you. In our episode, The Power of Detachment, we explored how to release past hurts and disappointments so that they don't weigh us down. I even shared a 6-week approach to change that many of you found helpful. If you missed it, I encourage you to take a look because that framework can really support today's topic. Today, we're going a little deeper. We're talking about surrender, not giving up or, waving the proverbial white flag of surrender. It's about a shift in how we live. I'm Bev Clark, and I'm very excited to be here to explore and to share this topic with you today. Surrender is recognizing that we are not in charge. We are stewards, but we are not in charge of our lives. So we have stewardship over our lives, but we're not in charge. God gave his angels charge over those who dwell in his care and protection. Now that is why surrender is vital to our well-being, because when we surrender, we let go, and when we let go, God springs literally into action and releases his power in our lives, and that's when the miracles happen. There's an app that pops up quite often when I'm playing a particular game on my phone. And this app is a tracking app. And in selling the app, they say that if you think your partner's cheating on you, get this app because you can track their movements. Now, increasingly, we're being prompted to take control, to believe it's great to control not only ourselves, but also other people, other people's lives, other people's actions, what other people are allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say. And if anybody says anything that we don't happen to believe in, then we can't just say, well, my opinion differs and give your opinion. They shut down and they get real high and mighty on you, cancel you, cut off your livelihood. It's getting very, very vicious, this control factor. Now, if you learn to live in a state of surrender, you won't need the app. Because I'll tell you what, because God will give the angels charge, and they will lead you to what you need to know. You don't have to track anybody. You will just be led to what you need to know to make your decision, or whatever you need to know will be brought and dropped right in your lap without doing anything. Now, this happens all the time. But what? We call it coincidences. So what is stewardship? Stewardship is management of that which belongs to another. Yes, our lives, our bodies, and our time, all our resources belong to God. But he entrusts us to manage our days wisely. If you're uncomfortable with the word God, go ahead and substitute universe, creator, higher power. It doesn't matter the name, as long as you are in recognition of the power to which you are surrendering, because there are lots of powers out there. So as long as you are in recognition of the power to which you are surrendering, you're fine. The name doesn't really matter. Charge, on the other hand, implies authority and command. It is always God who has charge. He commands angels, sets boundaries, and determines outcomes. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. Angels and divine outcomes respond to his word. When we surrender or we yield, we step into God's charge, where his authority and protection operate. Now here is the hard part. We have been programmed for so long to control ourselves, our environment, each other, other people, and their circumstances. We have been taught the benefits of self-control, and that is good until we know another way. When we know better or a better way, we must try to do better. Now, surrender. Yes, easier said than done. It has to be a conscious decision to live in surrender. Think of it this way. When we board an airplane, what are we doing? We are surrendering our lives to the pilot, a mere mortal, and a mechanical contraption. That's what we're doing. We get on the plane and we surrender ourselves, putting our faith in their ability to get us safely to our destination. Surrender to the supreme power, or God, requires no more of us than getting on the plane. The difference is that we pick up our control again when we land, so we do not even recognize consciously that we had surrendered our lives for a few hours. Thank God we landed safely. So guess what? Now we're back in control. Over the years, we have been told, where there is a will, there is a way. And perhaps that's fine. However, perhaps we should reword that by saying, where there is God's will, that is the way. Self-will creates resistance to God's flow. Where there is surrender, God's authority flows freely. Jesus' miracles flowed out of his surrender. He constantly emphasized that he did not act independently, but in total unity and surrender to the Father. His miracles were the fruit of perfect alignment with God's will. Have you ever thought about it? Perhaps that is why so many success stories start with, I had hit rock bottom. What are they really trying to say? My control did not work. There is nothing more I could do, so I had no choice. It was what? Either sink or swim. And when they did that, what happens? That's when their miracles came. If these people could recall the exact moment their miracle was triggered, they would probably remember calling on God, sending an SOS to the universe, so to speak, for help from a state of complete surrender. This surrender often marks the beginning of profound transformation and miracles. Now, Steve Harvey has openly shared his experience with homelessness and how it led him to a deeper relationship with God. He says that in 1991, he was living in his car and only had $35 to his name. During this challenging time, he said he made a promise to God that if God allowed him to succeed in the entertainment industry, he would publicly acknowledge God's greatness. He has since honored that promise, frequently sharing his experiences and his testimony. However, I would bet that if Steve Harvey were to think back to that moment just before he received the miracle, or everything seemed to open up and start working for him, that he was so low, and when he spoke to God, he spoke from a place of complete surrender. Tyler Perry's journey from homelessness to success is deeply intertwined with his faith. After enduring years of hardship, including, again, from what I gather, living in his car and facing numerous rejections, he turned to prayer, expressing his dreams and seeking divine guidance. He has spoken about the importance of keeping faith and believing in God's plan, even when circumstances seem bleak. I am again willing to bet, and I'm not much of a betting person, but I'll bet on this one, that if Tyler Perry were to think back, he would remember being so low, feeling of his own he could do nothing more, and he spoke to God from a place of complete surrender to the power. Comedian Russell Brand Russell Brand was never one of my favorite people in the past, but now he is. He has transformed. He's completely and totally, well, not totally, because he's still bearing his chest at every opportunity, but he has reinvented himself from the inside. He has openly discussed his struggles with addiction and how the addiction actually led him back to faith. He mentioned that his addiction and his experiences with what he described as demonic attacks prompted him to call on God, leading to a renewed relationship with his faith, another rock bottom experience. Then, of course, we have Oprah Winfrey, and who mentions the transformative power of faith, and J.K. Rowling, who said she felt like a failure. She was at the bottom of the ladder of life, struggling with depression, raising her daughter alone. Notice a pattern at the lowest points. This is when individuals surrender and open themselves to a higher power. Surrender is letting go. It's sort of like a child jumping into a parent's arms. That child jumps, that's a surrender. And then the faith is that the parent is going to catch them. They have no doubt. I've seen it over and over where the parent says, jump, jump to me. And the child just springs off whatever it is they're on into the parent's arms. Complete faith that they will be caught. So the jumping is the submission, and the faith in the parents is what cements the submission. Now, the challenge for us is to surrender, not because we've hit rock bottom, because many of us will do any and everything in our power not to get to that stage. So we need to learn how to tap into the power of surrender without waiting for a crisis. In that space, to live in that space that will bring joy, happiness, peace, and a truly successful life without having hit rock bottom, without being in a crisis. That's the hard part. Now, here are a few steps that may help you to practice surrender. 1, think back to a time where, in life, you just threw up your hands and you thought, I can't do this anymore. I have nowhere else to turn. What did you really feel in that moment? This is where you get out your reinvention intention notebook. Get it out and write it down. See if you can recall the feeling. What happened? Just go back and feel so you can, be very aware consciously now. Not on autopilot, but just constantly going back. What were you feeling? What did you sense? What happened in that space? Write it down. And if you ever find yourself in that place again in the future, please just pause and tune into your feelings. Chances are what you felt in that time was surrender. Now, once you know, this is number 2, once you know what surrender feels like, try to operate, live from that place moment by moment in our daily lives. It's, I go back to my little tiny steps thing. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's just moment by moment of conscious decision to be in surrender to the power of the universe. 3, set aside even 5 minutes each day to experience the feeling of surrender. During those times, disengage from distractions. No TV, no radio, no phone, no music, no social media. Just you in practicing the state of surrender. Now, this next step, Eckhart Tolle calls this isness in the power of now and a new earth. He describes it as recognizing moments, just the present moment, just as it is, without judgment or resistance, instead of struggling against life or insisting things be different. Just give into what is. As Tolle writes, whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. And perhaps to some extent, we did, even if it was unconsciously. Now, before I go to number 5, I'm going to share a story with you because so many of us might be able to relate to this. You know, not so long ago, I was helping a close acquaintance of mine with a project. I was doing something in Canva for the person. And the person just refused to look at anything I'm showing, say, look at it, this is what is available. I'm not any good, I'm just fudging my way through all the technology, as you know, most people my age do, or should do. And, you know, I was trying to assist her with something, and she resisted everything. She wasn't looking at what I was trying to show her on the screen. She was telling me, well, her computer isn't like this, and no matter how I tried to explain, it was not to do with the computer. It was to do with the platform, the app that I was using. And the resistance was so incredible that it started to affect me. And at that point I said, do you realize that your first reaction to everything is resistance? That anything that is said or done, the first instinct you have is to resist. And she said to me, really? And I said, yes. So number 5 is stop wasting energy in mental resistance. When you do, this is when transformation, creativity, and inner peace can occur. So that's an important step. 6, say yes internally to what's happening now. Whatever is happening now, don't resist it. Just say yes to it. 7, observe thoughts rather than identify with them. You know, thoughts come into your mind. Don't bother identifying with them. Just let them come in and go out. And that will help you to practice staying in a state of surrender. And then 8 is to shift from asking, why me? Why me, Lord? To asking, what can I learn from this situation, Lord? What is this situation in my life supposed to teach me as I go forward? These practices will help you to recognize what surrender feels like. And once you feel it, you can more easily live from it moment by moment. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to explain the degree of letting go. And so this is why it's so important that you feel it, you sense it, that you go back and think so you can remember what it felt like, even if it was fleeting. Because it's important, because that's where real reinvention begins. When life is no longer something we resist, but something we open up to. That's when peace, joy, and even miracles start to flow. When you get stuck in the self-control mode, again, just observe it without judgment and try to get back on track. You know, it's not going to be easy, and well, for some it might be. For me, it's been, years of working and still nowhere near where I'd like to be. However, let me share a few tricks with you that I have found to be helpful. You know, first thing, when you feel that you're losing your surrender, your state of surrender, make tight fists. Make them tight and squeeze them. And then, as you release them, turn your focus to your breath and think of something, just say internally, as you release them, and you focus on your breath, you say, I'm a feather floating on God's breath. And you feel that lightness that comes when you say, I'm a feather floating on God's breath. Or you squeeze them and you release them and you say, I allow this moment to be as it is. I allow this moment to be as it is. Just repeat it. You could say something like, depending on what is threatening to move you from your state of surrender, you could say, just repeat, thy will be done, something like that. Thy will be done. These exercises induce calm and stillness, which will make it easier for you to get back to letting go, back to surrender. William Shakespeare wrote, all the world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. So often, we get caught up in life's roles, following the rules, trying to fit in, and forgetting sometimes even our God-given gift of Eden. When we choose to reinvent ourselves by living in surrender, we open gateways to miracles. I can't stress this enough. Think of God as the main computer, the source. Let us say you're working in an organization and there is this big master computer, and we are the individual personal computers connected to that main computer. Now, on our own, our power is limited, but when we connect to the main computer, we draw on greater wisdom, strength, and energy. Surrender is the way we log on to that connection. Access the power of the universe. Now, if we want that connection, use your password. Your password to connect is SURRENDER. So you use that password to log on. This direct communication moves us from knowledge to knowing. From knowing about God to knowing God. And that's a big, big difference. So here is the invitation. Don't just know about surrender. Experience it. Start with small daily practices like saying yes to what is, or noticing when you're gripping life too tightly, resisting, and instead choosing to release, to align yourself with the greater flow of life, with the very power that created you. And it's in that alignment where freedom, peace, and yes, miracles are born. Thank you for joining me here on Reinvention Queen. Until next time, remember, your greatest reinvention begins the moment you surrender. Bye-bye.